everyone and welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be doing some repots on my Oncidium orchids in order to repot them into my new inorganic alternative to sphagnum moss, which will help to remove sphagnum from my setups, which is mainly an issue because of the yearly repots, I'll be honest, and the acidification of the media. I really like sphagnum otherwise, so I'm not anti-sphagnum, I'm anti-repotting every year and having your media breaking down and like towards the end of that year it being a little bit risky as to whether or not they are doing okay and absorbing nutrients well. So that's the reason that I want to switch to an inorganic alternative. I've tried leca in self-watering semi-hydro before and it's been too dry for them. I've since gone through this kind of trials with inorganic media and found a mix that really works with Synthic. So we're going to be repotting these guys today. So the first one we're going to be doing is the Miltonedium Isaku Nagata Hawaii, which produces really long, beautiful flowers, which I've shown you in bloom before. I got this one with you guys, and I think it was one where the pot was full of centipedes, and we repotted it together. In strictly speaking, it doesn't need a repot yet, but it started a new growth, and I want to repot them all, so I'm just doing it in bulk at the moment. So it's currently in sphagnum moss, self-watering, constantly moist environment. That does mean that the moss breaks down faster. So I've removed all the media, and as you can see, the roots aren't necessarily in the best shape. It did have a lot of roots when I got it, so these all look in pretty bad shape. But actually feeling them, many of these are quite firm. So I think it's just staining maybe from where they were in the cocoa peat to start with. Like the actual growth on it is very plump and they're not coming away, the volumen isn't coming away when I'm pulling on them. There's some that are potentially dead, but I actually think the majority of these are alive, just stained. Like look at the bulb, it's really plump. I don't think it would look like that if all of those roots were actually dead, which they do look like. So I think we're gonna leave a lot of these on actually because they're obviously doing something. The plant, if it really had no root, it would be in a much worse state than this. As you can see, it was munched by snails when we got it. I believe there was a snail actually in the pot with it, so a lot of the new tips from that new growth got munched. So we're gonna keep it in the same pot, just washed up the old pot that it was in, and I've washed the wick. It's not been in that long, it's fine. The wick is stained a little bit from seaweed use. So we're going to repot it now. So I've started off just by putting a bottom layer of Synthic in there, and I've put a few little strands of Synthic poking through the bottom to help with the wicking efficiency. Put a little bit of leca in there as well. Next layer we've just added more leca and pumice and a bit more Synthic running through there to keep it moist. Just going to position the orchid as best we can with the new growths towards the centre of the pot and the older growths towards the back of the pot. And I'm just going to fill around that with our potting media mix. I always try and get a layer of media sandwiched between the roots and the outside of the pot just to increase the efficiency of what the media is doing, which is providing moisture to the roots. Just going to put a little bit more Synthic around the top there and also poke that down the sides just a little bit to obviously increase the wicking efficiency to the top, and pop some more media over the top of that. So it's got quite a lot of pumice in this mix. You can see it looks like quite a nice airy mix, but it's got all the Synthic running through it, so it'll still be transmitting moisture evenly. We're now going to put a top layer of my horticultural grit on, which is my secret weapon with repots at the moment, with inorganic media. So it's an inert kind of washed pebble, basically, very small washed pebbles. They don't wick moisture at all, which means that they don't suck moisture from the root tips, so they're very root tip friendly, and what they do basically is provide a top layer that traps moisture beneath them, so the roots are quite happy to tunnel through the pebbles and then they can get through that, and then the layer underneath of the inorganic wicking material is more moist, so it's not going to suck and desiccate the roots basically. So that's all that this horticultural grit does. And I'll put a link down below in the description to the one that I'm using, but basically any small washed non-wicking pebbles, nice and smooth, is what you're looking for. See the mix there, nice airy mix with Synthic running through, so it's going to be evenly moist, and just make sure the wick is going to be touching the bottom there. And that's all done. Pop the tag back in, and that is the Miltonedium Isaku Nagata all repotted into its new inorganic material. So we're next going to be doing what I believe is the Bartley Schwartz Highland White. It could be something different. It is a no ID I've purchased from Garden Centre. I got this one with you. Look at the roots. I haven't had this for that long. I showed you guys when I got it home, and I think we did the repot together. But it's done so well, and it's just a super vigorous hybrid. So I don't think we're going to have any issues with the transferring into a new media. It's also got new growth starting. I'm going to remove the tag first. And this one, obviously, it's got more roots, so we're just going to squeeze this out of the pot, see if we can get it out. Yeah, it's coming out, no problems. Oh, maybe a little bit of a problem. One of the roots has gone through the bottom there. Okay, so that is the root system that we've got, and that is after not even that long in the self-watering with Sphagnum. Technically, this wouldn't need a repot just yet, but as I'm switching them all, I like to kind of do all my repots together anyway. It means they're all tend to be due around the same time anyway. Probably be more sensible to stagger them, but I just wanted to get this. When I decide to do something, I just want to get on and do it. I'm one of those people, I'm quite impulsive, so it takes me a while to make that decision, and then once I've made that decision, I'm just like, let's just get on with it and do it, because I'm excited to try it out more fully. So you can see here that a lot of the roots in the centre aren't looking so good. Again, I think this came in a cocoa peat mix, so we'll have a good look once I've got all this moss out, just like gently pulling the moss away. It's coming away quite easily because it's not too pot bound. It's not been in the pot that long. Remove the old sheaths. Let's give it a bit of a clean up. Just trying to get some of that media in the centre out now. I think it's tangled into the root ball there. Okay, so the actual rhizome seems to be quite weak in the middle here. I kind of wonder whether we've got two plants, whether the rhizome has kind of deteriorated. I think it's just held together by roots. It doesn't really seem to be held together by the rhizome anymore. I didn't investigate this closely when I did the first repot, so it could be that we actually have two plants now here, or it could be that it's kind of deteriorated more since the first repot. So I think we're probably going to end up dividing this, because even if it's not two plants, the rhizome is incredibly weak. I think it is just roots though that's holding this together, and a bit of cocoa peat that I missed on the first repot. When I first get them, I tend to be very conservative with how much media I get out and how many roots I leave on. So I'll leave things that maybe long term I don't want in there, but in the short term I just want the orchid to adapt as quickly as possible, so I want to stress it as little as possible. So I get out as much of the old media as I can, spray down with hydrogen peroxide, leave as many roots on as I can, and then later repots I get all these things that I may have missed before because I was trying to be very gentle. And so I got all the moss out and rinsed it off, and it turned out it was two plants, no division necessary. Maybe at one point they were joined, but I can't really tell. This back bulb came off when I unpotted. It was joined on kind of just here. Very weakly joined. I'll put it back in the pot and see if we get any directions of growth sprouting, if it has any nodes, but all the roots on it are dead there, so we'll just kind of pop it back in, and if it sprouts something, then it sprouts something and I can got another plant. If it doesn't, then obviously it'll be easy enough to just pick it up and throw it away. So we'll have a go with that one. It's fairly plump, so obviously it's got plenty of stored nutrients from the roots that are on the newer growths, which are quite vigorous, as you can see. Just going to use the same pot again, which I've washed up. And again, fill the bottom with a mixture of the Synthic, pumice and leca, and the wicks at the bottom there. And then fill another layer up with the same kind of materials. So we've got the Synthic evenly wicking moisture through that mix. And then we're just going to try and position these two back into the same pot. They really don't need a bigger pot. They do have a lot of roots, but the actual plant itself, I think at this stage, can go back into this pot. I might need to buy a bigger pot, but at the moment, this is the biggest size that I can do a self-watering setup with in a kind of more affordable way. Other than that, I have to buy the big LO expensive branded containers, which is fine, but while I can get away with smaller ones, the 15 centimetre ones will be reused as much as possible. Okay, so that is that one all done, and then we're going to just try and get some more of that media down between the outside of the pot and where the roots are. So I'm just going to use its tag here to just try and push some of the media down. You can use chopstick or a stake or anything kind of nice and thin that you can just kind of get between the roots and the media a little bit. Obviously you want to be as gentle as possible with the roots and still get some media down. Leaving a few air pockets is fine, but we just want to make it as efficient as possible for the roots. Just going to pop a bit more media in now that we've settled that down a bit. And just go around the pot, making sure that media is kind of filling air pockets as much as possible. And that's all done. And then we're just going to put another top layer of the horticultural grit, alpine grit, on it to stop that top layer drying out too much and stop the root tips desiccating. Obviously it's got a synthetic running through it as well, which will help with that anyway. And for Oncidiums, I try and put quite a thick layer of this grit down. The roots are absolutely fine with it because it's non-wicking, so it doesn't pull moisture from them. They're quite happy to tunnel into it. And we're just going to pop that back bulb just on the top of the media there, see if it does anything. It might not, but it seems a shame to throw away such a healthy back bulb. So that one's all done now. Next up, we're going to be doing my Oncidium Catron Zoke. This one's a really beautiful, really fragrant hybrid, which I absolutely adore. And it has some really great roots here. So we're just gonna, I've tried to get as much of the bottom moss out as possible. And we're just gonna really gently, because it's like clumped its roots up against where they hit the side of the pot and then gone down, it's got like knots of roots up against the side. I'm just gonna try and go in there and first get some of the moss out. And you can see all the roots that it kind of came with in the middle here are now dead. So we're also going to take those off. It's got plenty of healthy roots coming from new growth, and plenty of new growth starting. It's very vigorous hybrid. I definitely recommend it. I'm going to tease some of that moss out of the clumped roots at the sides here, and then we can try and untangle those clumped roots. Kind of act like it's hair that's tangled. You know how you run your fingers through hair to kind of get knots out? I kind of treat roots in the same way. That sounds a little bit weird. Maybe people with long hair watching this won't relate to that, but I just treat it like it's like knotted hair and we're just gently going to get a tangle out. Problem with when the roots clump like this is there's always moss right in the middle of the root ball that it's made. Okay, so I think we're kind of nearly there with getting the moss out, so we're going to want to remove some of these roots as well. I'm going to go and wash it off at the sink first though, I think, and a lot of this moss that's left in there will come out at that stage. So I've rinsed it off at the sink and we've removed as much of the moss as possible. I think we've got it all. Can't find any more left in there, so I think we've finally got it, and we're going to remove some of these dead roots that are right in the centre of the plant here. Sorry about the camera angle. Get my sterilised pruners and we're just going to take off all the middle roots that are dead from the oldest growth. So I've left on everything with a growing root tip basically and taken off all the rest. And we're going to pot it into one of these really nice clear containers. I reused this one. It's been through the dishwasher from my giant cattleya that I repotted. I really like these containers. Problem is with leca, it tends to be quite difficult to get the plant back out, but we're going to be using a mix of synthetics. Hopefully that won't be so much of an issue with Oncidiums as well because they've got smaller, finer roots. So bottom layer of pumice and leca there, and that's going to be the reservoir that's containing water. And we're going to pop some synthetic in and kind of poke it down so it's going to be still wicking efficiently from the reservoir. And another layer of pumice and leca mixed in there, so it's going to be a nice airy moist mix. And just tuck all those little roots in there and all those root tips. And then we're just going to fill around it with our media mix. And again, just trying to get layers of media between the roots and the outside of the pot. Synthic's nice and gentle on root tips, so pushing this down is not going to damage the roots at all. Just going to fill around that with pumice and leca again. And just going to move the plant slightly so I can get that down between the roots and the outside of the pot. And then we're just going to work on the other side now. So you'll notice I moved the plant over while I was doing that. So we're just going to move it back over. And very gently move these roots that are trying to come out. And these are the ones that are all tangled up. So now that we've untangled them, they are going back into the pot a lot easier because they are longer, obviously now they're not all knotted up together. And then we're just going to put one final layer on the top there. So it should stay nice and moist around the top layer. And I'm going to make sure I leave a gap of a few centimetres around the top to then fill up with the grit. And just gently kind of move the plant and tap to make sure all those little air pockets are full of the media. And we'll probably need to put a little bit more media actually down this side. So I've just gone around doing that and filled all the air pockets up. So there's no big giant chunks of like air pockets in there. Obviously it's going to be a very airy mix anyway, with kind of gaps between individual pieces of pumice and leca, but we don't want giant air pockets in for an Oncidium. Maybe for something like a Vanda that would be fine, but for an Oncidium, as few big air pockets as possible. And then we've got enough room there to just put the top layer of the alpine horticultural grit down to stop the top desiccating and drying too much and desiccating root tips. That is the Catron Zoke, all repotted into its new inorganic mix. Hopefully it'll enjoy its new home, and I will obviously keep you guys updated with it. Okay, so just one more repot to go, and that is my Tiara Tahitian dancer. So got lots of roots coming out the bottom there, and you can actually see actively growing root tips. And this one's more of a mix of bark and sphagnum, so there's more bark in the bottom there. And of course the roots have gone into the self-watering wick. And this new growth is just starting new roots there, so I'm going to need to be very careful of those root tips. It's branched incredibly. One thing I love about Oncidium roots is how willing they are to branch. We've got some live moss growing in there as well. Okay, so those roots are actually dead. So instead of trying to untangle them, I'm just going to cut them because they are dead. Again, I'm just going to cut some dead roots off here and try not to damage. See that one looks dead, but can you see the growing tip on it? So it's not easy to tell with Oncidiums, but at some point you just, like, if they've got loads of roots like this, just take the ones that look dead off, even if they're alive and just not quite so healthy, where when you first get you might want to leave them on. When you've had it a while and it's producing an extensive root system like this, those older dodgy roots can just go. You don't need to worry about it like you do when you're first getting an orchid. And often you'll find the older parts of the plant are the bits with the dead roots. It's natural, they do have a lifespan. And we can see that I never got into the middle of this plant when I first did the repot. Naughty me. We've got still a plug of the cocoa peat inside here, which I thought I'd got all of it out, but it seems like there's a little wedge of it that I've missed. So we're going to get that all out now. Right, so I'm going to go rinse off this root system, then we'll come back. Okay, so we've removed all the dead roots and washed the plant off, and now we're going to pot it up. I've used the same pot and I've just washed it up because the pot is appropriately sized. So I've already placed my wicks in the pot. First of all, we're going to go with another layer of synthic at the bottom there. Synthic, pumice and leca, and we're going to layer another layer on there. And then we're just going to place the orchid in the pot. And tuck those roots in. And again, I kind of untangled them so that we could tuck them down a little bit better. And we've got two directions of growth, one on each side here. Oh, and another one at the back here. So it's kind of growing from all angles, so we're just going to place it as centrally as possible. And it will need another repot in not too long, actually. Which could be a problem, but we will see how we go, because I don't actually have a bigger pot at the moment, so it's going to have to do for now. And then we're just going to do the same as before. And that is the Tahitian dancer all repotted there into an inorganic self-watering system with a mixture of synthic, pumice and leca. And I'm hoping it'll do well in this. And we've certainly got lots of roots and lots of new growths, so I'm sure it'll adapt with no problems. And the reason we've got some yellowing leaves here is because these two had been in their pots for too long, and basically they've been in a self-watering system with sphagnum moss, and the moss was starting to break down and acidify. It's becoming very acidic in the pot, and I was having trouble managing the pH. So we've got pH dependent nutrient absorption issues here, potentially magnesium and nitrogen, which is why we've got some of the yellowing leaves. So hopefully this will be more manageable now that we've got nice fresh media that actually has a neutral pH anyway, so I can control much more easily the pH in the pot by pHing my nutrient solution correctly, and this won't break down ever. So this is going to stay the same and be a nice controlled, pH controlled, nutrient controlled environment for them. So I hope you enjoyed this repotting video of my mass Oncidium repotting and some of the issues that I've run into with the nutrient absorption and very acidic pH. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then don't forget to give it a like or subscribe to my channel for more regular orchid updates, and I will see you guys later. Bye!